I'm just opening up with some B-roll footage from early September after coming back from one of my missions. But this video is actually going to talk about the mission from September 8th, the viral video where I was passed 2 AT-4s instead of ammo that I requested. So many people had questions, so many people had opinions about what was going on that I just want to set the record straight. It's been a while that I wanted to make this video. It's just has not been any good timing for me to actually sit down and hash it out. So this actually starts with my commander coming up to me on the 6th of September and saying, "Yuri, what do you need to do to destroy a tank?" And I was like, "What kind of tank are we talking about?" And he's like, "A BMP-2. And yes, I understand a BMP-2 is not a tank. However, in this general context on how he and I communicate, I understand that anytime he's talking about a tank, he's talking about any armored vehicle that requires something more than small arms to take out." So I tell him, we can easily take those things out with an AT-4. And he's like, "Great." And then he's like, "Can you fire an AT-4 from the Humvee?" And I was like, "Of course you can. You know, just out of the turret. You can't fire it out of the vehicle." And he's like, "Okay, great." So then he tells me tomorrow, the 7th, you're going to go to the Polygon, the military base near Mykolaiv, and you're going to teach some Ukrainians how to fire the AT-4 because on the following day we go to work. And then later that day he just calls me up to the command center. So we get to the command center, and on the wall is this big screen TV, and playing on the TV is drone footage just recently taken within an hour or so, and it's showing the village we're about to assault, and in the village you can see a BMP and a BTR on the section of the village that we're going to assault. And the plan is we're going to hit these guys early in the morning before these guys get up. Now the Russians, they don't have the discipline that we have in the Western militaries. So they park their armored vehicles and then the crew just goes inside and goes to sleep. There's nobody in that vehicle manning it. There's nobody in the turret. There's nobody there. They just sit there. And we've ambushed so many of these vehicles in this fashion. And the Russians just don't seem to be learning from this simple mistake. So the following day we go to the Polygon, and I teach these guys how to use the AT-4, and then my Humvee's crew is there, and we train on getting him passing me AT-4s. So we're starting our assault right now. My primary focus is that first building. Inside that building is the anti-tank guys, and we know this just from the drone footage, and we could see them bringing in anti-tank tubes into that structure while they were occupying this, setting up this village. And I'm doing fairly long bursts, primarily because I just want to really iterate to the people inside that building. It's like, hey, don't get the fuck up, just stay there. So right there on the right of the building, that's where the BMP or the BTR should have been. I don't see it. So I start engaging the third building over because I saw those flashes coming from the windows. So right now, the guys down below, they have no idea that there is no armor threat to us. Before the mission, back at base, I prepared some AT-4s in the armory by removing the forks, and I set them aside. I asked the loader to go grab them. He just kind of misunderstood and grabbed a whole bunch of AT-4s that were not the ones I prepared. I shoved this back down in the Humvee simply because this is a training aid for me. I now have a spent tube I can safely train other Ukrainians with. They still do not understand that there is no armor threat. I get down in the turret, and in English, I explain to them exactly what I need, and they now fully understand. But first, I need to take care of this asshole who is shooting at us. So I prepare this AT-4 in the safety of the Humvee. I stick it up out of the turret just to make sure that it clears everything and doesn't catch on anything, because I'm going to have to jump up real quick, fire, engage that structure, and then get back down. I did not have a proper grip on it, or I would have chucked that into the Humvee as well, so I would have a second training aid to train more Ukrainians with. So it's not a language barrier, but it is a communications issue, okay? So I'm not down there and saying, hey, there's no armor threat, I don't need the AT-4s, but the day prior when we were training, it's like, hey, you hear me fucking shout, you give me fucking rockets. So he's doing what I told him to do the previous day. Just throwing rounds into the weapon right now just so I can get that weapon back into the fight. Got all this adrenaline pumping right now, and I got all these fucking rounds just flying over my head while I'm doing this. I'm fucking with the turret. At that time, that mechanism needed to be rebuilt. As I come back up, I see this motherfucker running with a rocket, so I engage him. 50 cal round possibly hit the rocket, ignited the engine, and that's how you see it fire and then just disintegrate. It's not like the guy got hit and he pulled the trigger or anything. The 50 cal top cover gets stuck a lot. And I knew this from the very first moment I got this 50 cal, and it's not like I can just take this 50 cal to the armory and say, hey, it's not working, give me another 50 cal. It's not how it works out here. We only had, at this time, just those 2 Brownings. So I had to make it work. This is also why the commander gave me the shittier of the 2 Humvees and the shittier of the 2 Brownings, because I could easily just improvise or just make shit work, where my Ukrainian counterpart, he really struggled with trying to figure out different shit with these weapon systems in the vehicle. Not long after this mission, we were able to actually take apart the traversing mechanism in the turret and actually get parts to repair it, and, you know, after this, it actually worked without an issue. The clutch still never worked, so it's not like I could just pull that bar and then just free rotate the turret. So you still hear them engaging us as we drive out of this village. So down there inside the Humvee, my loader can't hear and can't see shit. He has no idea what's going on around him, and his sole job was just to pass me AT-4s, bull spikes, and ammo. So when he passed me the first one, he thought there was the credible threat of the BMP or the BTR. It wasn't there. But I never said that to him, so he had no idea it was not there. And the whole day prior, we were just training on having him pass me up AT-4s. Because I put the fear of God into him, saying, hey, if they get into that freaking BMP or BTR, that 30 millimeter is going to fucking destroy us. So he's kind of afraid of that right now. And again, there's no communication from me to him. It's just, hey, pass me ammo. Okay, here's an AT-4. Another common comment I receive is, well, why don't you have 50 cal cans up in the turret with you? As you clearly see, there's not a lot of room up here. I used to have 50 cal cans up in the turret with me. However, one can went flying out of the turret when we hit a fucking crater in the field, and it got lost in the field. Another can had actually flown back into the Humvee and hit one of the dismounts in the head. Luckily, he was wearing a helmet, or that would have been a lot worse than what it really was. So at this general time, I do not have any way of securing 50 cal cans into the turret with me. And before you're like, well, why didn't you just have some of the guys weld you up a rack or something? Literally, that's what I've asked for since day one. However, my needs are not generally a priority for them. If you're like, well, you're out there fighting and helping Ukraine and doing all this other shit, again, you do not understand what's going on out here and how things work out here. Then another big one I get a lot is, oh, you're just out there wasting ammo. I don't see what you're shooting at. Oh, you're not shooting at anybody. Oh, this is staged. What those guys don't understand is the Russians' purpose at that moment when we started engaging that village is self-preservation. They are going to make themselves the smallest possible target in order not to get hit. This is not a video game where you just see the guys running around and guys jumping over fucking roofs and shit, and shooting back at you. They're in defilade. They're behind cover. They're even just straight up sticking just their weapon out from behind cover and firing in our general direction. They're not going to be running around in the field. They're not going to be running around in the buildings. You're not going to see them silhouetted in a window, because that's how they get killed easily. I was just lucky enough to see the dude with the RPG coming around the building at that last moment, and just very unlucky for him. So he had to leave the structure in order to fire that particular weapon that he had, safely and effectively. And he just made the wrong fucking choice at that moment. And then they're like, well, you just drove up, fired off a whole bunch of machine guns and left. Yes, that is literally the purpose of what my unit does. We're not an infantry unit. We're not equipped to go into these points, engage, destroy the enemy, and then occupy those positions. So this mission, very simple. Go in there, destroy the armor assets that they have in that village, and allow it so that infantry later can follow in and then just take over that village. We are a reconnaissance unit that also conducts lightning quick assaults. That video you guys just watched of me getting the AT-4s and engaging that village that's almost 5 minutes long, that is actually the longest mission I have been on. Everything else has only been under a minute to slightly over a minute. We go in, we hit the positions, and we get out of there. We don't even stop. And we sure as shit don't see the enemy. Unless it's a vehicle such as a BMD or a BTR or a fucking tank, we don't see shit. We can see the muzzle flashes from the firing positions where these guys are shooting at us from, but that's about it. We know where the enemy is, and we engage in their general direction. How do we know if we're hitting anything? That is not the point in what we're doing. We are providing suppressing fire. We are providing harassing fire. We are engaging or attempting to get the enemy to engage us for our purposes. I hope you guys understand more of what went on during that one mission. I understand that this video is probably never going to have the views that my original video and the videos that were leaked and shown to you guys have gotten. I think it's somewhere around like 3 or 4 million views since like the last time I tallied them all up, and that was like well over a month ago.